Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. I hope everyone is having a wonderful day. Before starting the video, please go ahead and hit the subscribe button and give this video a like up. Thanks for visiting my channel again. Now that Josh Duggar's sentence was extended by 82 days and his new release date is April, the month of December. December 23rd, 2032 is the date. Plus, we touched on the idea that Josh Duggar's cell phone might have played a role in this yesterday. Someone at Seville has a loved one residing in these model inmate dormitories, which is why I mentioned this in May. The more you succeed, the more perks you'll get in this system. Also, there are things that only inmates in this particular model dorm get to do and privileges that no one else gets. But apparently, there is a code of conduct that you must sign and abide by if you want to live in this dorm. There was a shakedown in the dorms and 6 cell phones were found. Someone who had a loved one there posted about it on May 17th. People are reprimanded when their mobile phones are discovered, either because they are in possession of them or because they are using them. As for punishments, they can include things like being placed in a segregation housing unit, namely a SHU. Additional time can be added to their sentence as well. The commissary budget they receive can be limited. Restrictions on their visits are possible. Call restrictions can be imposed on them. There is a wide variety of disciplinary actions that can be taken in federal prisons. In 2023, Josh, too, went through this for a few months. He was placed in the SHU and he had a phone. After he removed the SHU, his sentence was lengthened by an additional 40 to 51 days in prison. This time around, Josh's prison term is 82 days longer. The Sun had informed us in September 2024 that he had been transferred to a refurbished dorm with upgraded facilities. In addition to the comforts, they painted the walls and had flowers delivered to his dorm number 6. An honors dorm now occupies the space. As a result of being an honors dormitory, they are entitled to special treatment and regular building improvements. Home appliances such as microwaves, washers, and dryers are available. They are attempting to establish a dormitory of exemplary prisoners. Thus, the majority of prisoners are denied the opportunity to do their own laundry. They are not authorized to handle things like commissary microwave installation. As a result, they are enjoying preferential treatment. They also mentioned that there is a time limit on any disciplinary actions that can be taken. In addition to signing a code of behavior agreement, individuals are required to hold a job. They assume Josh was receiving preferential treatment because he isn't eligible to dwell in the dorm. The fact that he is pursuing higher education is being used as an excuse to keep him on the payroll even if he does not work. Their regulations would have barred him from residing there because to his SHU time a few years ago, but they've chosen to waive that for him. Unit 6 has always been Josh's housing unit. I don't know if this has changed in any manner. What this means is that he may be in the dorm for good behavior if the unit that originally housed 6 people was converted from that. It seems they had already planned to turn Unit 6 into a dorm at that point, but I'm not sure. He was already in Unit 6 at that point. Because familly is a minimum security prison, inmates do not reside in cells. The doors of their residence are unlocked. They have not been incarcerated. 2 rooms are available to them. 3, 8, and 12-bed units are available. Plus, it all depends on the property they reside in. There are a variety of structures and units, each with its own set of rules and regulations regarding access and responsibilities. So even though it was considered low security, he was presumably in a unit that had been moved to a lower level. Among the few houses with air conditioning, his was particularly rare. So it seems like there were a lot of shakedowns when the new warden took over, and some guys were found with narcotics, contraband, and cell phones. And they were all penalized. It seems like Josh got in trouble sometime in May, maybe between March and May. I'm not sure if he was definitely caught up at that time. There are inmates in the Seville, Texas prison who do not have access to air conditioning. So this particular house, specifically Unit 6, was a luxury temperature. And as anyone who knows, Texas well can attest, summers can be scorching. As a result, he was someone who was having access to lodgings that a large portion of Seville's population lacks. Well, it seems that someone has informed the Sun that he is no longer a resident of the honors dorm and that he has been relocated. A normal one has taken his place. He had been residing in the luxurious dorm for nearly an hour, and they still don't know why he was moved out. If anything has changed, I would like to know that because Josh has always lived in Unit 6. So, if he's in there, it's because they decided to transform the unit that originally housed 6 into a dormitory in the sake of good behavior. I'm not entirely certain, but it seems like they had already decided to turn Unit 6 into a hostel by the time he was there. At this point, we have some information. After 2 more months, he has already left the dorm. So he's been utterly screwed up, hasn't he? Inmates at low security facilities can be transferred to medium or even maximum security facilities if they incur a certain number of disciplinary actions within a certain time frame according to a process outlined by the federal government and the prison system. When prisoners get into problems, there are a lot of processes that must be followed. Moving prisoners to other prisons is another prevalent practice while they are incarcerated. Over the course of their term, it is not uncommon for an offender to spend time at more than one facility. While some remain in the same facility, others are transferred frequently. I don't think he was ever a model prisoner, but now that he's out of the specialist dorm, it's official. The likelihood of his incarceration in a building without air conditioning is high. As a result, he will have to cope with the heat and other conditions. Typical of a Texas prison, they have the option to transfer him to a more secure facility with even less privileges if he persists in this manner while still having access to phones. So, when you're behind bars and trying to make the most of your life, the majority of people, those who are serious about using their time for good, try to maximize their efficiency by getting degrees or rehabilitating themselves and improving their lives outside of prison. It would seem that Josh still believes he is entitled to do anything he wants and doesn't have to follow the rules. He is under no need to conform to societal norms. I feel that this was expected given that he has received 2 disciplinary proceedings. The sentencing of Josh bled all of this, an enormous show put on by the relatives. Everyone who signed the letters that Jim Bob had them write assured the judge that this was Josh's last chance at trouble. No other matter would ever bring them before the court. He seems like the perfect prisoner. There will be no disciplinary measures taken against him. The assurance that this one incident would not define Josh was taken at face value. Because of his dedicated wife, parents, and extended family, the judge was deeply moved by the outpouring of support he received and was impressed by their willingness to devote their lives to helping him recover upon his release from jail. In addition to promising various forms of assistance, moreover, the case's prosecutors paid no attention to the letters whatsoever. Actually, their overall impression of Josh was that he was basically an unreformable person. Because of his extreme narcissism, mental games, and sense of entitlement, he will never admit fault for his actions. In any situation, he could identify a scapegoat. They'd brought up the fact that he persisted in implicating these other individuals despite the lack of proof. Even after this, he maintained his denial of blame. It was speculated that his denial of responsibility in the role would lead him to avoid rehabilitation programs like SOS once he was in prison. This was because admitting he had done something wrong would be too painful. In order to participate in the rehabilitative and therapy programs available to convicts at Segville, it is a requirement of the programs that they acknowledge having participated. They must recognize that they have been victimized. They must take full responsibility for their actions and behaviors that led to their detention in Siebel. Plus, admitting responsibility is the first step toward effective reform and behavior modification. Plus, he has no intention of doing so. They even went so far as to say he would never. They believed he is destined to remain unchanged due to his inherent characteristics and inclination to little ones. This explains why he finds children so endearing. He stubbornly refuses to acknowledge his attraction. He maintains his denial. It will not recognize it. His sisters are among the youngsters he has hurt. Having Josh ever see his kids was a major worry for them at one point. They asked the judge to sentence him to 20 years in jail. The judge, however, reduced his sentence to 12 years. According to their assessment, Josh is among the most dangerous criminals. He downloaded some of the most scary and horrible content engaging in unsettling behavior. This material he saved to his computer is like the absolute worst of all time. Josh obstructed CPS and the Department of Human Services from interrogating his children. As was made evident, the fact that his children are minors has caused them great worry. They are worried that he will have access to them after his release and that they may become victims. However, they were unable to inquire as to whether or not the children were victims of his since they were never interviewed. Their goal was to keep him in prison indefinitely. The judge handed down a sentence of 12.5 years. Well, after you're released, you'll be subject to supervised release for an additional 20 years, the court announced. However, Josh is demonstrating that he is still incapable of following the rules, even while incarcerated. If they don't follow the regulations, how can they hope to have him released? Josh is the type of individual that poses a threat to society, in my opinion. Even though his crime and sentence prohibit him from having access to the internet and any cell phones that store data or have electronic use like watching videos and downloading internet access, he is still trying to get on cell phones and access the internet. For example, he will lose internet connectivity on his phone when he leaves the house. He will not be able to use the internet once he leaves. Absolutely no adult stuff will ever be seen by him. Since his problem is so pervasive, they refuse to think that he would refrain from downloading child CSM. If he were to view adult stuff, even though it is in the public domain, it is my sincere belief that the judge's punishment was unfair to each and every one of the victims. There ought to have been a lot more. There wasn't. From his sentencing to his living in an honors unit, Josh has been the recipient of so much undeserved special treatment. Finally, he has been removed from the honors unit. However, he needs to feel that his actions have real-world implications eventually. Not a single one has occurred thus far. Furthermore, I have just conducted research into the Fayetteville home that Jim Bob purchased. Even though it doesn't actually have 6,000 square feet, the mansion says it does. It's around 3,500 square feet on the inside, and there's a barn with further living quarters or a converted warehouse that's been turned into a living warehouse. I was mistaken about the main house size, and even after his release, he will still be unable to live with children. That means he can't possibly coexist with Anna. While he's inside bars, I hope they could simply press additional charges against him. I find it intriguing that Jim Bob was able to acquire both the home in question and a rental business for $1 million. I can compare it to a commercial building. There he staked $1 million. This led him to spend $2 million on real estate in April. In addition, he made $5 million by selling Walmart some land. Affluence is his. Still, Josh claims he is unable to afford legal representation. What I hear is that they are no longer footing the bill for him. Wow, you really messed up when Jim Bob abruptly ended the call for the simple reason. That man has been his scapegoat for a long time. Leave a comment telling me what you think about the latest news. Please hit the like button on this video. If you haven't already, please subscribe to my channel and hit the bell icon to ensure that you don't miss a video. My deepest gratitude for tuning in, friend. Farewell.